Hello, welcome to QA tutorials. So in this video we'll talk about static versus dynamic testing, and we'll see what is the difference between static and dynamic testing, and what are the techniques used for static testing versus dynamic testing. Right, so let's get started. Right, so let's look at what is static testing. So static testing is basically a form of software testing where the actual program or application is not used. So we're not going to use actual application or a program. So this testing method requires programmers to manually read their own code to find any errors. So basically we just go through the code and see if we can find any errors. So static testing is a stage of white box testing and is also called dry run testing. We're basically going through the code and see if we can find any errors. So what are the different techniques used in static testing is basically code review, walkthrough, and inspection. This is basically techniques used in static testing. So what is dynamic testing? So dynamic testing is a kind of software testing by which dynamic behavior of the application is used, code is analyzed. This is what actual software testing happens, like black box testing or integration testing and all that. So this is performed on the runtime environment. So all the unit tests, integration tests, system tests, and acceptance tests are done on using dynamic testing. They are part of dynamic testing. So static testing is basically code walkthrough and reviews, and dynamic testing is actual testing like unit tests, integration test, system, and acceptance tests. This is the major difference between static and dynamic testing. So both techniques are used during the testing to eliminate the errors and prevent errors from happening in the real world environment. So let us see some important differences between static and dynamic testing. So as we talked, static testing is kind of a white box testing and is done at early stages of development life cycle, whereas dynamic testing is done at later stages of development life cycle. Because for dynamic testing, so we need the application to be available so that it is done at a later stage. So static testing involves code walkthroughs and code review. Dynamic testing is functional and non-functional testing and all other things, right? So the main difference is static testing is done before code deployment and without execution of code, whereas dynamic testing is opposite. It is done after code deployment and execution of the code. So static testing comes under verification and dynamic testing comes under validation. So basically static testing targets to achieve 100% state coverage in a relatively short time frame because you don't need to test anything, we're just walking through the code. Dynamic testing takes running several test cases which may take longer time, right? So basically static testing takes less time because we are not executing the code, whereas dynamic testing takes more time because we need to run different test cases and functional and non-functional testing. So static testing comes under prevention, whereas dynamic testing is the cure, right? So we are actually testing the application, see what is the issues in the application. So static testing techniques is a checklist prepared for testing process. Dynamic testing, we're going to prepare the test cases. So these are the basic differences between static testing and dynamic testing, and both are important for successful product deployment, right? So I hope you got some knowledge on this static testing and dynamic testing. If you still have any questions, put it in the comment section. And if you like this video, click on the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.